in a big piece of garbage, we find the consequences of 20th century or early 21st century, I suppose, laziness coming back to haunt the 31st century. An asteroid of junk, garbage, rubbish has come back to potentially wipe out, at least, if not the Earth, New York City in an Armageddon-esque fashion, possibly inspired, at least in some visual terms, by the 1998 feature Armageddon, for better or for worse. But what we essentially have in a big piece of garbage is a fairly... I think it's a premise that kind of wrote itself. It seems like an idea that they're pitching in the writer's room, what if sometime in the early 21st century, all the garbage on Earth was like shot into space, and then it's going to come back, and Fry's got to teach them the clean future how to deal with it. It kind of writes itself. I think it's a decent...
cheap premise, sure.
Decent to a fairly fun, if not very simplistic episode would be my kind of nutshell take on it. I like it overall, but I may... If I may just get this out of the way, I think it's my least favourite episode so far, even though I still fairly like it. And I think it's one of these episodes where they have to get from point A to point B. I don't know how organically it writes itself as a script, versus having a kind of set structure that it wants to fulfill. Nevertheless, fairly fun. Not as clever as some of the episodes around it, although if this is to be one of the weaker episodes in the first season, it's an extraordinarily strong season. That's all I will say here for the time being anyway.
Yeah, come to think of it, it probably is the one I enjoy least so far out of all the ones we've watched, but that's just because they're all so good.
Oh, of course.
And like I said before, it is a bit of a cheap premise. And like you said, it is fun. It's just, once again, another one of these episodes is full of great jokes. I mean, I never really saw it as I guess as an Armageddon parody, but...
There's a shot of the three of them walking.
Yeah, of them walking. That's a shot from Armageddon. I've never seen Armageddon, but I've seen that before. And, I guess shooting the missile to save Earth. Yeah, it's a very clear, like, Armageddon parody. And I suppose... I never thought about it, but one thing that comes to mind is it's like a sort of brother or sister episode to a later one, the Crimes of
Crimes of the Heart.
Crimes of the Heart, yeah, which is the other, I guess, global warming episode.
Yeah,
and this one just because I guess I've never realized this, but there seems to be a pattern here with season one where there are these episodes with like pretty simple premises that maybe people would think of as like sort of commentary episodes, it's about a topic or something.
Yeah.
But in a way, like say an episode about a garbage crisis and what to do with waste, and the mayor even brings up global warming at one point. It's still an episode, once again, that's more about Fry than anything else. And just his attitude. And I remember at one point he describes the garbage ball as like a monument to the 20th century.
Mm-hmm.
I remember earlier we were talking about how so much of this show is based in the 20th century. And it just seems like this episode is directly addressing that. And I guess similarly, another episode later in the season when aliens attack.
Yeah. Those
two, in my mind, or these two, that and this one, have always felt, once again, like a pair in this first season. And so I mostly like this episode for that, but once again, we'll get to it. When aliens attack is the better episode out of these two.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But yeah, this episode still is very funny, but yeah, the weakest so far. I agree with you there.
Yeah, when we compare this episode, like just for a point of comparison, like the previous episode we saw, My Three Sons, it kind of winds up being... My Three Sons is a really strong way to... That premise is a really strong way of ascertaining, Fry's pathos, Bender's program's pathos, and Leela's kind of principles. And it's really
a
brilliant
episode.
And you can see the kind of what K-Punk would call the cuddly psychodrama of Kirk, Spock, and Bones kind of reiterating itself in, or at least different iterations of different kind of pathoses on display in I don't know which kind of classical Greek archetypes you would correspond Fry, Leela, and Bender to, but I'm sure someone can help us out there. Well, I'd like to think someone could. There's some books around us which could help us out. I'm certain.
Oh yeah, there'd be some answers, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're looking at several.
But yeah, there'd be allusions people could make to them fulfilling archetypes in plenty of world culture, I'm sure.
And as for a big piece of garbage, I think we have, Fry as a kind of bastion of a 20th century slacker, Leela reacting to it as a 31st century, and Bender's kind of just there, I do like Bender's role as kind of apathetic, almost bemused that humanity will be destroyed.
He's having a good time
That's pretty
with
good.
it. He wants to loot.
Yeah.
They say that, like, people will die, and he says boo-hoo.
Yeah. It's still funny in a basic way, but I guess straightforward by comparison.
Yeah, definitely straightforward, yeah. I can't argue with that. But I mean, if it's a sort of episode that, if anybody out there is still watching broadcast television, if you happen to catch it,
you feel lucky.
But randomly you're like, oh wow, this is a good episode. Yeah. But say you go out of your way to watch it, it's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yeah. Watch it if you want, or just catch it on, in the ether.
If you're so inclined. The battery on this laptop is low, so I think we may as well end it here.
Yeah.
All right.
Call the quiz.
Thanks, everyone. I hope everyone is as well as can be.